I think one of the interesting, and maybe, one of the things that hasn't been discussed, there's been a lot of talk about the eventual move to an 18-game schedule. And to me, the 18-game schedule will really help teams hide players that they like because it's going to be one less preseason game. It's hard to get through
the cut down guys that
it's hard to get through 3 preseason games when you have this many running backs that you kind of like, but don't play. Like Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey those guys aren't getting snaps in 3 preseason games of any significance. So like Isaac Guerendo is going to get carries. JP Mason is going to get carries. Schrader's going to get carries. I thought, to me, one of the headlines, actually, the reaction video I did after Tuesday's practice, I had 8 reactions. The first one was the running backs. That doesn't mean it was the most significant, but that was just the thing I was most excited to talk about. I thought Isaac Guerendo looked awesome on Tuesday. Just interesting, really interesting.
Big and strong and explosive.
The other guy, and I know I'm jumping around, but
Schrader?
No, your boy, Mason Pline. I didn't realize Mason Pline.
He's good.
Well, first of all, the one thing you could see on tape with him, and I texted the video before the draft or right after the draft to my buddy Evan Moore, who's been on my show and played tight end in the NFL. It's just a really sharp guy.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you think? Like, just watch 3 minutes of this guy. He's like, well, the first thing that's clear is he moves really well. So that was clear. The thing that I didn't realize about Pline until I saw him on Tuesday was that he is NFL ready in terms of like his body, in terms of he's thick. He's not skinny. I thought he was a little skinny on film. He's not as cut as Eric Saubert, and Eric Saubert's a big dude, but he's about as big as Saubert is. He's got
upper body development.
He's not as like Saubert is like a rock. Pline will get there, but he looked more NFL ready from a physical standpoint than I expected to. And I watched him doing a lot of the special teams kind of like coverage drills, and he moves really well. So I thought he looked really promising.
They got something there. They got something in Pline. There's no doubt. Everybody, the coach thing, I love the coach day because they don't make the coaches available more than like twice a year. Right. So this is like one of the times we get a chance to talk to the coaches. And so the offensive coaches go first, and that's the defensive coaches go first and the offensive coaches. And then, of course, the offensive coaches, everybody wanted to talk to Brandon Staley. Not to Brandon Staley, to Brian Greasy. Brian Greasy had tons and tons of people around him. Bobby T to a lesser extent. Forster wasn't there, so for whatever reason he skipped out. So Brian Fleury, as the tight end coach, had nobody there, and so I'm going to walk up. I'll get a one-on-one now with Fleury. So I start talking to Fleury, and we start talking about Cam Latu and this and that. And I said to him, and I know Brian a little bit from talking to him the last year, and we got a good little rap. So I said to him, I said, man, you guys got my guy Mason Pline. I really loved Mason Pline in the pre-draft, and I go, let me tell you my reasoning. Somebody told me the guy was good. I YouTubed him. I found nothing but Ferris State basketball highlights, but I'm watching this guy tomahawk reverse jam, and he's got an above the rim game. And I'm thinking to myself, after I watched the basketball highlights, Brian, I'm like, this guy's good enough athlete to play in the NFL. I don't care what his 3-cone is or this or that. I mean, when you watch a guy reverse jam on the break, if you can get up and reverse jam in traffic in a college basketball game, you're athletic enough. You're athletic enough. Then you mix in the 6'8", the 10.5-inch hands, and the fact that he's a mechanical engineering major. And I said, man, Brian, when I read that report, I was like, I'm all in, man. I love this kid. And you know what? First thing he says to me, he goes, I saw the same things you saw. And he's like, I'll say this about Pline. He's like, he's got a lot to learn, but he's improving at a ridiculously fast rate.
Which makes sense, right? Because he spent 4 years playing basketball, not playing football. So he's got
Right.
these big jumps to make.
Right. And the
is he
fact that
smart?
he's really, really smart.
Yeah.
So when you're really, really smart, and then the other thing he said is, you know what? With the undrafted free agents, it's really hard to get an undrafted free agent tight end to sign here because they know that we've got Kittle, and they know that we use Juice sometimes at tight end, and they know that we go three wides because of our wide receiver depth, and so it's hard to get an undrafted college free agent tight end to sign with us. But he's like, Pline wanted us and we wanted him. So
I think that I know you saw the interview I did with his coach, his college coach, and he thought it was a great fit. I think for a guy with some vision, like a guy who might have a shot to play, I actually think it's a great spot because the others have been looking for tight end 2 for a long time. So you don't get to be tight end 1 right away, but you get to be tight end 2. Like that's a pretty good place to be. So I'm optimistic about him. I'm optimistic about him.
He looked good. And I was told by Fleury that Cam Latu, that he's still kind of rehabbing and that he's mentally in a really good spot, that he did really good job in the offseason of kind of using his redshirt year to improve. And I just said to Brian, I said, Brian, what is he though? I mean, tell me what he is, because balls ricocheted off him last summer. I'm like, is he a receiver? Is he a blocker? What's the strength of Latu? Because we just didn't get a good enough look at him. I know he didn't play tons at Bama. And he's like, you know what? That's the beauty of this kid. He's like, he can be both. He's like, he can be a really strong inline blocker in the run game, and he can be flexed out and utilized as a second receiver and can even get down the field. So he really had a lot of good things to say about Latu.
I mean, I'm sure it was a very difficult year for him last year. Not just getting hurt, but like having kind of, to our eyes at least, not a great camp before he got hurt. You don't want to get hurt at any time, but you certainly don't want to get hurt when it's clear that you have some catching up to do. So I'm sure it was a challenging offseason for him. And he did not catch the ball well last year, and we got a chance to see him. But they drafted him knowing it was probably not going to be an immediate impact player, and then he required some development anyway. So, the other thing that we didn't get to see a lot of the special teams tactics. I heard Mike McDonald, the Seahawks coach, and somebody asked him, like, what's it going to be like? He's like, your guess is as good as mine. Like, I don't know. We're going to find out. And Kyle said the same thing. Like, none of these coaches really have any idea, which will make it interesting because I'm curious if they will try a lot of different things and specifically different players to return. Are your traditional punt returners going to make the most sense? Is a running back going to make sense? When you go back and watch some of those XFL returns, they're kind of running back style runs because there's not really any separation. There's not big gaps. There's not, like on a traditional kicker punt return, a bunch of different players at a bunch of different levels. It's everybody kind of lined up. It looks like the movies where you watch an old battle before people hid behind trees and they just like stood in lines and marched towards each other. That's what this new kickoff looks like. And I think running backs might actually, I think Elijah Mitchell would be an interesting returner with the new kickoff rule, but
because he can make guys miss and he's shifty.
Yeah. I think running back skills will turn out to be more important than straight line kind of returner speed skills, but I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Well, the Niners have every possible type of returner that there is in camp, right? They got Trent Taylor.
Cowing now.
They got Cowing. They got the little shifty guy. They got Guerendo, who's a big tackle-breaking speedster. They've got Juice, who's the reliable fullback. They've got Trent Taylor, who's not going to give you big returns, but he's maybe the most reliable. And
they have Pearsall.
They've got stars like Ayuk and Debo who have dynamic capability.
They had Danny Gray catching punts the other day.
Danny Gray's explosive as all get out. I mean, they got Ronnie Bell. They've got Chris Conley. I mean, they just got a bunch of guys, and they're going to have lots of things to choose from. And it's funny. Somebody asked the question, and the way they posed it, they're like, I think it was Jake Hutchinson to Shanahan. He's like, do you take a lot of interest in the new return rules? And the way he phrased that, I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna say, of course I do. And sure enough, he's like, yeah, oh yeah, we take a lot of interest in that. It's like the last thing you want to say after you didn't know the rules in overtime is like, nah, we're not that interested in these new rules. You know, I think you could ask Kyle Shanahan about any rule change for the next 6 months, and he's going to be like, yeah, we've done a deep dive. We've looked at it with a fine-tooth comb. We are studying it intricately, looking for advantages. You know what I mean? He's never going to say, not really. We're not all that into it. We'll just see. We'll see how it goes. You know, it's like not after that Super Bowl, not after that overtime.
He was in a good mood on Tuesday too.
He was.